When patches drop in Star Citizen, it's often necessary to make a name for yourself once again in the salvage arena in order to unlock the largest of salvage contracts once more. And with the new internal storage in the Vulture, it's never been easier to do that using a single ship. I'm Forrester, and this gameplay video shows those first 3 Vulture Salvage missions, spanning about an hour and a half of gameplay, albeit with some parts sped up to keep the overall length of this video down. The sped up parts are clearly marked, but otherwise this is a complete start to finish. The goal of this trip was to complete the first 3 salvage contracts with the Vulture and then sell up. So let's get started. And here we are into Hangar 2 to collect the Drake Vulture. Since this is in the spirit of brand new resets, this is a brand new Vulture. It's completely stock. All of the components are the default components, so what you're seeing is kind of the first starting out contracts, as it were. And at some point we may well do some upgrades and changes to the loadout, but for this video it's purely a stock Vulture. So we'll get sat down in the pilot's chair, get the ship started up, and then select our first contract. Got a choice here of Avenger, Vulture. Quick check of where I am and what's nearby. Crew L5 Vulture sounds perfect. With that, we'll steadily lift off and outside of the hangar. Beautiful Crusader below. Try to avoid hitting the ring of Seraphim Station. And then wonder why that contract didn't work as an accepted contract. That's how it goes sometimes, I guess. Just try taking call to arms and see if that sticks, and it does. So, in that case, probably need to grab another new salvage contract. And this is how it goes sometimes with Star Citizen. Sometimes you get these little kinks in the game that just slow you down a little bit, but that's fine. It's not exactly game breaking at this point. So we'll take this contract for a cutter instead at her L3. Not too far to go to get to her L3, and I was just checking the map throughout. Sometimes I find it helpful just to reacquaint myself with what's where, and this is obviously times 12 speed quantum drive, and reacquainting myself with what's where just makes sure that I pick a contract that is nearby. It sounds obvious, but when you're in a stock Vulture without any quantum drive upgrades, it's quite an important thing to try and pick something nearby. I'm doing these scanning pings on the way to the salvage claim just to make sure I don't fly into an asteroid when I'm travelling at full speed. So here's my first one, the cutter. So what I'll do first of all is switch to scanning mode, just check if there's any cargo on the back. But when I'm trying to scan this one, it's just not scanning properly. Again, this does happen sometimes. Just the way of it, I guess. And for those wondering, I am holding down the button. This is not user error. So I'm going to hop out and just check that there's nothing in the back of that cutter. It doesn't have a lot of cargo storage in the back, but if it's something valuable like gold, it'll be worth knowing about putting in the back of the Vulture. And there's nothing, it's empty. Quite interesting that the Drake Vulture is the salvage ship, and the Drake Cutter doesn't do any cutting. Somebody at Drake not quite figured out their naming. And this is very me in Star Citizen, by the way. Trying to do EVA, falling on a floor, getting stuck, and having to get up in embarrassment as however many people watch this video have seen me fall down. Never mind. Back into the pilot seat, we'll do some salvaging. So I'll start salvaging, particularly for a ship this small, with just these cinch modules. So they've got a very thin area that they cover. I haven't explained that very well. The diameter of these salvage heads is quite low compared to other salvage heads. Now for a small ship like this cutter, that's absolutely fine. But on a larger ship, it makes it very tedious. Sometimes it's easy to forget how much these things stick out from the front of the Vulture. So if I forget, having the tractor beam on board as well is very helpful just to steady the target in case you gave it a nudge and it's wobbling around in space. So that was the kind of hull stripping. We got 1.4 SCUs from it. Now switching to the fracturing mode to break the thing up. Fire some, I don't know, ultrasonic sound waves at it until it vibrates itself apart, and then once it's done that, break up the smaller chunks and gobble them up. There we are. First contract completed. As easy as that. So we'll switch back to the main salvage mode, ready for the next contract, and search for the next contract. You can see here already that lots of those other contracts have been unlocked, some of those larger ships. So even just after that first mission, we've made good progress. Now I could go and get something a bit bigger, but that Drake Vulture has appeared now. the one that we took first of all that didn't work. Now it's suddenly appeared. Fair enough, we'll go and do that one. So I could have taken a bigger contract for something like, I don't know, a Corsair or something like that. But by taking a couple of smaller contracts, what I've done is I've essentially picked things that are closer by. Well, closer by in this first instance because that's where I thought we were going originally. But also the smaller contracts mean that I don't need to worry about bringing a cargo ship along. I can just stick it all in the back of the Vulture / in the hopper of the Vulture and get the 3 contracts done that way. And we're out of quantum travel to Crew L5, the Lagrange point. I really like how all these different Lagrange points have slightly different colouring to the nebulas that are attached to them. Nebulas? Nebulae? They're all different colours, it's quite nice. So this time we'll come in, we'll try and scan the Vulture. And we're just scanning to see what cargo is in the back to save getting out of the chair and looking. Why get out the chair and look if you can scan it? Now this one actually is scanning, so I don't have to get out of the chair. Perfect. And it has got cargo aboard, which might be worth getting out of the chair for. So I'll position the back of the Vulture roughly to the back of the other Vulture, just to make it a bit easier to transfer cargo from one to the other. I know that whatever cargo I'm going to get out of here is going to fit, because it fits in the other Vulture. So that's the advantage of doing a contract like this where you mirror the cargo capacity. You know that no matter how much is on board, it'll fit. And then it's my favourite game of Space Tetris as we move from one cargo grid to another. That sounded a bit scathing of tractor beam gameplay. I actually quite enjoy this. I do genuinely quite enjoy organising boxes, moving boxes. It does appeal to me. It's not the most complicated of gameplay with all of the things that Star Citizen can do, but I do quite enjoy it. Even though if sometimes I'm a little clumsy at it, as was the case there. At least you know this is real. I'm not in the top 1% of tractor beam gameplays. I'm learning as I go. Quite like the lighting here, where you've got like the dark Vulture and then the light Vulture, which is ours, with the sun behind it. That's pretty cool. I just realised all of these say that they are whatever material, in this case tungsten, and it says ore. So whether or not that will sell when we go to sell up the rest, we'll just have to see. If not, I can just go somewhere else to sell it, or I could just dump it all into space. That would really get people going if I dumped all of that into space. Right, we'll head back aboard. We'll strip the hull. In fact, we'll make some space before we do that, just so that whatever comes off this Vulture in terms of materials definitely fits in the hopper and I don't have to come back down. That's a smart idea, I think. I imagine many of you watching are familiar with the Vulture, so will know, even though the cargo grid is full, there is still space for boxes. For those creative and bold, you can fit more boxes in here. The cargo grid is well placed to make sure you've always got room to be able to walk past, and that you've always got room to be able to get your boxes out. But there is a door upstairs, and so for those who care not for walkways, that space can be used for boxes. And as of the most recent patch, I'm also a little bit less concerned about only stacking like construction materials on construction materials or RMC on RMC. The consoles that you go to sell at seem to do a much better job of working out what's where and making it work, so I'm a lot happier with just stacking whatever on whatever, not worrying about it. Right, back up to the top deck. Let's salvage. Could that be a little, like, catchphrase that you could use? Let's salvage. It's break-in time. I don't know. It just sounds really cheesy to me, I'm sorry. Alright, here we go. So, given a little nudge there already. This is what I was talking about earlier about having the tractor beam aboard. Just to try and steady the thing. But you can see there the abrade module, just much bigger diameter on that. So for a slightly larger ship, it just makes it a little bit less tedious to kind of grab the scrap from it. I'll try engaging that tractor beam somewhere else. Just want to steady the ships that I can salvage away happily. There we go, that looks pretty steady. And there you compare the little cinch scraper modules to that abrade, and it's very precise, very fine in comparison. Which is it's not a problem. Like if you've got time and you're happy to do this, you'll get plenty of materials off it for doing it. And it is satisfying to slowly watch that hull dissolve in front of your eyes. That's why I quite like this salvage gameplay. There is definitely something satisfying about it. Do find that filler station, although you've got the extra capacity in there, which is great, it does feel like it fills up so much more slowly now. I guess as they're balancing these things as you go along, but for somebody who kind of remembers salvage of the old days, it does feel slow. So, with that in mind, let's switch the tractor beam off, switch the abrade module on, and we'll just use the big beam. Now, incidentally, this is my preferred loadout for the Vulture as I do the upgrades, is 2 of these abrade modules. And I do keep the tractor beam in the kind of second spot. But these for me are the sweet spot of kind of painting the hull quickly, but also having a decent kind of return from it. The tractor beam is helpful solely for those times when you bump what you're salvaging, like as a quality of life thing. If you drive the Vulture for any length of time, you are going to bump something. That's just the way it goes, and it's so frustrating when you do and it's just kind of spinning. So unless you fancy doing a bit of an interstellar scene and spinning around a spinning thing, the tractor beam really helps. So 2 of these abrade modules, that's my preferred kind of salvage head loadout. You can see we're getting a fair bit from this thing. And then we'll switch to the fracturing mode and we'll break it up. So just over 3 SCUs in the hopper. You can see that on the right hand side lower of the user interface. And then up to 6.4 SCUs as we fracture this and break it up into smaller chunks. Yeah, those wibbly wobbly smaller chunks. Try and get the bits that are floating away first. And if you've not seen this kind of fracture and disintegrate gameplay before, it's very much you enable the mode. You can see it's enabled by the little blue hovering icon on disintegration field. You hover over a target like this, the circle fills up on the target, and once the circle fills, it disintegrates, and all of that stuff goes into your muncher at the front of the ship. As simple as that. And this is obviously the main body there, just over 5 SCUs. Another one there, and then just these little bits, tidy up, will not leave anything in space. Contractually obliged. There we go. That was a decent little endeavour. So then we've got that other contract that we picked up, which is her L4. That's good. That's ended up being a nice little round trip around the centre of Stanton. So we'll times 12 it and we'll head to her L4. We've still got the call to arms mission. I think last time I did some Vulture gameplay for this channel, we ended up mixed up with like some spawn areas for bounties and things like that. So it ended up being like a combat Vulture scenario. But we've got call to arms this time and we haven't run into anything, so it's much more of a industrial affair. Right, so we'll scan up this Avenger with a very fancy orange and blue paint scheme. It looks like no cargo. Fine with that. Let's break some holes. Disable the tractor beam, enable the abrade module, and that should make pretty quick work of this little ship. And in times 12 speed it most certainly does. So I'm just keeping an eye out on the filler hopper on the bottom right, because we are close to the 13 SCUs that fills that up. So before I disintegrate the hull, I'm going to go make some space down below by just emptying a few more boxes. We've got room in the back of the Vulture, that's fine. We'll move a few more boxes back, and then I'll be able to break up the hull without having to worry. Here we go, first box is out. And we'll times 12 my space Tetris. There we go, hop back in the front seat, disintegrate the thing. You can see on here, disintegrating nicely. And when you line them all up like this, you can potentially disintegrate a few things like at the same time, which is pretty cool when that happens. I didn't empty out all of the boxes, I didn't empty out the hopper completely, I just needed enough room to be able to fit these disintegrated bits in. And then we've got the last bit at the front. And that should almost fill up our hopper again, so that's ideal for me. What I had in my head when I set out on this trip was fill up the cargo bay, fill up the hopper. And we'll get to how we manage that when we get to Microtech, where we'll go and sell up. So times 12 quantum travel. What we've got in the back, we've got that ore in those crates that we looted. So whether or not that sells, we'll just have to see. We've got plenty of construction materials and RMC scrap, which we'll sell. And then we've got a load of extra RMC and construction materials in the hopper ready to go. So it should be a decent payout for this 3 salvage contract trip. You might wonder why I came to Microtech to sell up. There's probably a couple of reasons. First of all, it's my home base. So this is where all of my ships pretty much are. So if I can get back to Microtech, I often prefer it. But also this easy access to be able to get in and out of selling at the Commons. It's very handy being able to park without having to get on the tram. As we try and sell up our first lot of goods. Okay, so they don't want any of that stuff here. That's fine. So the first lot, 68k for 5 RMC. That's alright, that's not so bad. They don't want to buy that stuff. I think because it's the ore rather than the refined materials, if that makes sense. We'll take the scenic route around to be able to sell the construction materials whilst we're here. And I can never remember which side it is to sell the construction materials. I feel like I always get the wrong side. And that's the case here. I think this is just the shop, yep. So it's the opposite side. Planetary services, that's what you want. For selling your construction materials. There we are. Another 18k from 3 crates of construction materials. Again, that's alright. We'll high speed it back to the Vulture. Lots of reclaimers around at the moment as well. Good to see, big brothers. So what I'm going to do now, we've got a full hopper and we've got some cargo that they won't buy here. So I'm going to head up into orbit just to move boxes around. So I'm here outside of Port Tressler, literally to move boxes about. And I'm sorry if you like your materials, but all of this stuff is just getting flung out the back. Present for somebody else to find. So in theory I could have found somewhere to go and sell that, but for me this session was already kind of approaching long enough. Knew that I was recording it, so actually I'm not going to sell it. I'm just going to sell this stuff. It will make a decent amount of money and we'll head straight back down to sell up. Plus those boxes are out there. Somebody else could grab them if they wanted to. We'll head into land. We're given the biggest possible hangar to land in. Incredible. You wouldn't get this in your C1 Spirit. You'd have some pokey little hangar. Not here with the Vulture. Have the biggest hangar, pal. Set down for landing.
Landing complete. Have a pleasant stay.
Do your refuel. Which is pretty cheap in this ship, I have to say. It's a good deal. Engines off. Hop out. We'll head over. So I'm going to store the ship. And head back to the Commons to sell up the last of that RMC and the last of those construction materials. Since I'd emptied all of them out of the hopper. So we'll sell the construction materials first. Another 10 SCUs, so that's another 61k. That's not bad, that'll do. And then we'll head back to the... Can I remember, is it the TDD here? I think it's the TDD. Well, that's not. We're about to find out. Yeah, TDD. We'll sell up the last of that RMC. Another 13k. So in total that was 161k made. We paid a little bit for the contract, but it was still an easy profit and an enjoyable one nonetheless.
Welcome.
So, I hope you enjoyed this gameplay video. If you did, pressing the like button will let me know that I should make more videos like this. If you're not yet subscribed, given that you got this far, you probably want to do that too, so that YouTube will know to show you more videos like this in future. But otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.